Tensions between Ukraine and Russia have been rising for several weeks, with clashes intensifying in eastern Ukraine, a region that has been mired in conflict since Russia first supported Ukrainian separatists there 7 years ago. Russia has sent thousands of troops to the Ukrainian border recently, raising concern among politicians in the United States and the European Union. The current escalation is also further straining U.S.-Russian relations. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has warned Russia against aggressive actions. The Kremlin has repeatedly said that Russia's military forces are free to move around within the country's territory as they see fit and that the troop movements near the Ukrainian border, exercises, according to Moscow, pose no threat. Ukraine's foreign minister has accused Russia of flagrantly threatening Ukraine with destruction as fears continue to rise over a possible escalation of hostilities in the country's conflict-stricken east. Russia has amassed tens of thousands of troops as well as tanks and artillery near the shared border in the region. Moscow has also mobilized troops in the annexed Black Sea region of Crimea, which it seized from Ukraine. Addressing a news conference on Thursday, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba condemned the Kremlin's aggravation of the security situation, and accused Russian pundits and officials of openly threatening Ukraine with war and the destruction of Ukrainian statehood. Moscow's actions and statements aimed at escalating military tensions and undermining diplomatic efforts to resolve the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, he said. Kuleba also warned Moscow against initiating any incursion into Ukraine, stating any intensification of the escalation in the Donbass region, of which Donetsk and Lugansk are a part, would have very painful consequences for Russia. The red line of Ukraine is the state border. If Russia crosses the red line, then it will have to suffer, he said. The world is on the side of Ukraine and international law. On Wednesday, NATO members Germany and the United States urged Moscow to reverse course and to escalate the situation in the region. A day earlier, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg urged Russia to end its unjustified military buildup. The Kremlin has repeatedly denied interfering in Donbass, but Ukraine and several Western countries have said separatist forces in the region have been armed, led, funded, and aided by Russia. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said Moscow had moved 2 army and 3 paratrooper units to its western border as part of a large snap drill meant to test combat readiness and respond to what he called threatening military action by NATO. Shoigu said on state television that the 3-week exercise was due to wrap up in the next 2 weeks. He also claimed NATO was deploying 40,000 troops and 15,000 pieces of military equipment near Russia's borders, mainly in the Black Sea and the Baltic regions. NATO denies having made such plans. The Russian president ordered the closure of part of the Kerch Strait after 2 U.S. warships were set to be deployed in the Black Sea. U.S. President Joe Biden has called off the mission to avoid escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Russia's blockade of the Kerch Strait was announced by the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. All foreign warships will be unable to carry out military exercises in the region from next week until October. The ministry blasted the closure in a statement, writing, "Such actions by the Russian Federation are another attempt to violate the norms and principles of international law to usurp the sovereign rights of Ukraine as a coastal state, as Ukraine has the right to regulate navigation in these areas of the Black Sea." They also said they view the closure as a gross violation of the right to freedom of navigation and said Russia must not obstruct or impede transit. Also in the statement, Ukraine's ministry pointed out the closure of the Kerch Strait came against the background of the ongoing buildup of its military presence along the border with Ukraine on land. In the latest in a series of tensions that could spark a war between the two nations, Russia is accused of carrying out provocative maneuvers around Ukrainian artillery ships. The Ukrainian Navy has threatened to shoot at Russian FSB security service patrol ships in a worrying flashpoint amid fears war could be sparked between the nations. In response to the threats from the Russian vessels, our sailors had to warn of a readiness to use weapons, said Andriy Klimenko, editor of Black Sea News. After the Kiev sailors issued the threat to shoot, they were allowed to proceed, he said. There are fears Russia is seeking to provoke a response from Ukraine which may act as a catalyst to a wider conflict and even full-scale war. Vladimir Putin is projected to have 115,000 troops in place by early next week. It comes as Ukraine has warned that it could unilaterally build a nuclear arsenal if NATO refuses to permit it membership of the Western military alliance. Russian state-owned Sputnik news agency said in a report that Ukraine likely retains the technical capability to build a nuclear arsenal. But it said, the state of its civilian nuclear power program leaves something to be desired. Last year, Ukrainian nuclear industry workers sounded the alarm about the threat of another Chernobyl, citing a dire situation, which they said was taking shape in the country's nuclear energy sector due to a lack of oversight, safety permits, and funds. Kiev warned strongly over the threat of the Azov Sea tension escalating into a major incident. Russia continues to violate international law, said the Ukrainian Navy. Moscow has told Ukraine's Western backers to stop providing the troubled state with weapons and instead try and de-escalate the situation in Donbass. The foreign ministry added that Russian officials don't trust Kiev's sanity. Speaking on Thursday, spokeswoman Maria Zakharova pointed to the deaths of thousands of civilians in the region, saying that Kiev has gone unpunished for the supposed killings, which she says are ignored by the international community, as if completely invisible. This is clearly due to the intervention of Western handlers, Zakharova said, adding that Ukraine is being